Hello and welcome to the Siren podcast part 2. This is the Tunnel Manifesto podcast, wherein I'll be talking about the new manifesto I've helped create with some others for a London-based artist collective. But to start off, I thought I'd play some music from a band that I used to be involved in called Nature Magnet. And this track is called The Year Is One. Now, we were kind of an experimental band back in the 2 years ago now, but yeah.
God is dead! Satan lives! The year is one!
The year is one. The year is one. The year is one.
The year is one!
One.
God is dead. Satan lives. The year is
One.
God is dead. Satan lives. The year is
One. So that was a track by Nature Magnet, a band I was involved in and pretty much a really good project I was involved in. But anyway, on to the main point of this podcast, which is the Tunnel Manifesto, which is a manifesto co-written by myself and a few other people in the group called the Tunnel Artist Collective. You can visit the Tunnel Artist Collective at the tunnel-art.co.uk and then go onto the R Manifesto link from there, and you can find out more about our manifesto. So I'm going to read a bit of the manifesto today, and you can read further, which would be ideal really, but it's basically going to be in 3 segments, and I'll have music in between, as much as I can fit in to half an hour. So the Tunnel Manifesto, what is it? It's basically a kind of cultural map we're trying to set down for new art in the 21st century, and inspired by expressionism, romanticism and technology. So I'll start. It's CC and attribution share alike license as well, so anyone can view this and have a look at it on the website. So some of the things that inspired this manifesto, and I put this down as conceptual words on the manifesto itself: truth, romanticism, inner essence, technology, interlinking mind and mental mainframes, and expression and feelings. So it's kind of inspired by expressionism, romanticism. So the idea of inner essence in a lot of ways has dictated the kind of I'm trying to get in touch with ourselves as artists, and trying to get in touch with the broader cultural paradigms that we want to create. So I'll just briefly go over the contents of the manifesto, then I'll play some music, and then I'll delve into the actual manifesto itself after that. So the contents of the manifesto: there's a diagram with the 3 zones of reality, which I'll define further in the next segment. The links are broken, which is divided into 4 sections because the links are broken, the issues of culture, interlinking and co-creation networks, and a final message, which is the final message of the manifesto. But before that, I'm going to play a bit of music by Altered Carbon. This is called Slave by Altered Carbon. Slave. Three zones of reality. Internal reality. Internal reality is the disconnected and free chaos of all perceptions and ideas swimming in an ocean of chaos. Internal reality is the realms of the deep subconscious and the mind's attempt to order this chaos for the external. It is the deep and primitive drives into clashing desires of the id, ego and superego, a deeply symbolic mental zone of ideals with no one at the wheel. I shall refer to this as the internal zone. External reality. The concrete world existing outside of the boundaries of the self. Arguably is equally as chaotic as the internal zone, if not more so, but it's more subtly chaotic and has a semblance of order to it, regardless of the actual state of order. I shall refer to this as the external zone. Meta-reality, i.e. the meeting place. If internal reality is a stormy sea of the mind's functions and the external calmer but no less complex realms of the conscious, meta-reality is the murky depths where the processing and the communication between these two distinct realms occurs, and it is a limbo-like realm of the mind associated with mental phenomena as diverse as synchronicity, mental illness, and déjà vu. I shall refer to this as a metazone. That's an extract from the manifesto, the mid part. And a lot of this is elaborated on in a lot of greater depth and given intellectual foundations on their website www.tunnel-art.co.uk. But I thought I'd just give you an extract from the manifesto as is at present. Now I'll play some music. This next one is going to be one of mine. It's called let's just see what I've got time for. Third Mind from the Sun. I'll play this very fast and then we've got to really crack on with the rest of the manifesto that I've got to talk about. So yeah, enjoy this. third mine from the sun by me, broken god in this instance, Monica. So that was one of my tracks. Next I'm going to just talk more about the manifesto, and yeah, I'm just going to read this out. So this is more diving into the actual content of the manifesto, of like I said, more of which you can get some intellectual foundations from on the Tunnel website, tunnel-art.co.uk. So, because the links are broken, and this is talking now about why we should want to create a new culture. The conception of these three zones is of course of a highly conceptual and abstract nature. This is a problem with limitations of language. I feel we instinctively know what is meant by these terms intuitively, but the written and spoken word is so limited in its ability to join the dots in between and serve as a means to address an issue. That issue is simple. How do we refresh our culture? And why should we desire to? What are the issues and problems of current modes of culture and reality? How do we bring our collective and individual mental zones to the highest clarity, to build tunnels between the zones? Why do we need to fix our culture and our collective imagination and mind? Because the links are broken, and we must be the artist engineers who fix them. The issues with culture. The problem with the culture of the now includes too much focus on the external zone, so that the meta zone and internal zone are at best expressed partially, and at worst are ignored altogether. This is in a sense an issue of materialism versus a more spiritual worldview, with some additional degrees of complexity, but first we should explore our popular culture. In contemporary and modern art, there is a tradition from the last 50 years for artists who focus on reproduction of the existing consumer cultures, as if this blowing up or exaggeration of our consumer drives in society somehow offers a clearer critique of said consumer culture. It does not. It only serves to continue the reproduction of an ordered external zone pattern that offers nothing to us spiritually and nullifies our deeper internal and meta desires to forge deep connections and ideas and ideals. This is a rot at the heart of much popularised culture. There's nothing wrong with images or cultural artefacts being popular. The issue isn't what is popular, it is what we should be propping up as artists, as consumers, as free-thinking individuals. What ideals and ideas should we invest our time and energy into? Which is a big question. Interlinking and co-creation networks. Our technological progress over the last 50 years has been staggering. We now have the ability to access knowledge at the click of a button, and the creation of the internet and networked computers, and it is the net itself that has unlocked a world of possibility for human beings to unlock our creative potential and further probe the internal zones further and deeper than ever before. The net is, however, simply a reflection of our own chaotic, varied and diverse interests and desires, and has brought not only the best but the worst out in our characters. For every Aaron Schwartz defending the rights of the net and opening up the boundaries of potential for the net, there is an internet troll, or criminals, waiting to exploit our new technologies. And that was the manifesto, in a nutshell thus far. There's a lot more kind of elaboration on the website, the tunnel art.co.uk, and you can view a lot more about what the manifesto itself is about. Basically, we are against the culture of consumption and strive towards the creation of romantic ideals. And I'll just put one track on now to play us out. We've got 5 minutes left, so I'll just put on a short one I've done, and let's do a few shout outs as well to people who hopefully be listening. So on the first track that I played, Nature Magnet, that was featured contributions from Rebecca Smith, who was in the band with Ben Neal, who was in the band with Matt Nin, who's one of the creative people in that project. Obviously Matt Tudor, who was one of the co-authors of the manifesto, and Jamie Stanton, who's one of the co-authors of the manifesto, and all the Tunnel artists. Give all you guys a shout out, and thank you for listening if you have been. Let me know if you have been at Chris Gobber Art on Twitter. And just to play us out, this is one of mine. It's called catchy title, Meldivid. Try pronouncing that when you're drunk. Alright, good night, and if you've been listening to this, tweet at me at Chris Gobber Art. Visit our website, the Tunnel art.co.uk, and good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.